Hello and welcome to a Second Look Goal Show. My name is Emmett McConnell, and in this series, I look back at the big moments and goals from the Union's previous matchup. Last Saturday, the Union hosted Montreal Impact in a 3-0 win, which had goals from Corey Burke, Jamiro Monteiro, and Alejandro Bedoya. Now, Montreal set up to defend in this one, as they had in the previous 3 matches, which included shutouts at DC United and New York City FC. They also had a shutout at home against the Columbus Crew, who was previously in first place in the East. Now, the Union strategy to break down this defense was to get as many men in front of the box as possible, usually 3 or 4, trying to crowd the Montreal backline and center backs. Now, I'll look at a couple instances where this paid off, including the penalty on the second goal and the third goal. However, it wasn't the real reason the Union came away with 3 points in this match. In fact, Montreal more or less faltered. The first goal was a bad back pass from a Montreal defender, which put Corey Burke in a 3v2 situation. The second was a rather unnecessary penalty given from Zach Diallo when he pulled down Jack Elliott. In that situation, Elliott wasn't even going to win the ball, and it seemed a bit unnecessary. So that's 2 goals right there. And Jim Curtin mentioned in the press conference after the match that he wasn't particularly impressed with his team's play. So while the Union did do some things right, a lot of it came down to Montreal just losing their cool. In the rest of these videos that I will show, we're going to look at what the Union did do right, however. Here we're going to look at the first goal from Corey Burke. Montreal has the ball, but the Union are set up in a pretty good shape to defend around midfield. The ball comes wide to Dan Lovitz, who doesn't have a lot of options, so he tries to play it back first time, and it's a terrible pass. Now, Corey Burke, Alejandro Bedoya, and Brenden Aaronson are off on a 3v2 situation. Burke is trying to run at Jukka Raitala, the left center back, to open up space for Alejandro Bedoya. He doesn't yet see Brenden Aaronson, but he will quickly become the best option for him. The right center back, Zach Diallo, steps over and tells Raitala to step over and guard Bedoya. The way Diallo sets up his body shape, he marshals him into the wide area, almost forcing his pass to go to Bedoya. Aaronson is in a lot of space, but the way Diallo is set up, Burke just can't get his pass to him. What I would have preferred Burke to do is a simple wide pass to Bedoya, who could have then laid across right in the middle of the box for Brenden Aaronson. What Burke sees, however, is that Zach Diallo is guarding the pass, but not the shot. So, from about 22 yards out, he lets rip. It's right in the corner, and pretty much anywhere else you would expect Bush to make the save. As it is, it's a sloppy giveaway for Montreal that gifts the lead to the Union. It also, more or less, throws out the entire Montreal plan for this game, which was to defend and hopefully get at least a draw on the road. Here we have about 8 Montreal players within 10 yards of their own 18. Aaronson has his back to goal with defender Jukka Raitala right on him and 3 Montreal midfielders ready to back press. He sees this threat and decides to take his touch away from the players so that they can't close down on him. He takes it into a wide area, and the fullback Dan Lovitz is just too far away to close down and help his center back. Aaronson takes another touch to the end line, and Raitala, afraid of fouling, decides to just contain his marker. Aaronson's a little bit quicker, though, and gets ahead of the center back. Now the rest of the Montreal defenders realize the threat of Corey Burke in the box, who's ready for a tap-in. In the end, it's actually a really good play from Raitala to make this block, because if he didn't, it would likely be an easy goal. In the end, the corner kick that resulted from this play was the one where Zach Diallo took down Jack Elliott, and the Union ended up getting a second goal anyway. This is really good play from Brenden Aaronson, however. He's pretty isolated on top of the box, even though there's a lot of Union players pushed forward. He doesn't really have an option for a pass, and so he tries to do it himself. The Montreal defense, which has been very good recently, deals with it quite well. However, this was just a sign of things that was to come for the Union, as they had been pressing quite a lot, other than the few Montreal counterattacks. Now let's take a look at the best Montreal chance in the first half. The ball is in a wide area, and the Union are set up to try to trap and keep it there. Aurélien Collin is sucked out of position to close down Maxi Urruti, who lays it off for Bacary Sagna. Now, it's Harris Medunjanin who doesn't pick up a runner, who now is into the space that Collin had vacated, which pulls out Jack Elliott to close down the man. At this point, there's only one Union defender in the box, Ray Gaddis. But Alejandro Bedoya notices that something's wrong and tries to get back to defend. The ball comes into the box as Bedoya is trying to get down onto his man. But as it is, it's a 2v1 for Ray Gaddis to try to deal with. It goes over his head and to Safir Taider, the Montreal designated player. He takes his touch, but he just doesn't settle it right. And tries a chip, I think? As Ray tries to close him down, in the end it goes over the goal. Initially I thought Aurélien Collin had a pretty good game, but looking back on it, he does get beat a couple too many times and get pulled out of position. Here's another where the ball is a simple, straightforward pass from Zach Diallo into the forward. Collin steps up but is too slow and the touch comes around him. He didn't need to try to win the ball there, and his aggression gets him beat. Luckily, Ali Bedoya is quick to come back and try to cover his center back. He forces the man to play it to Max Urruti, the forward. Jack Elliott had initially had his eyes on the man running at him with the ball, and ends up making a really good play here. There's some help from Ray Gaddis, who's able to force Urruti back onto his right foot. Gaddis isn't able to make a tackle and win the ball, but he does force his man back and gives Elliott just enough time to get in front and stick out a leg to make the block. I think if he doesn't get his foot in here, this is likely a goal, or at least forces Andre Blake into a difficult save. Now let's look at the Union's third goal. It was perhaps their best bit of play all match, and the most deserved goal. The ball starts out on the right side with Ray Gaddis, and plays it across for Harris Medunjanin in the midfield. When Harris receives the ball and gets his head up, he can see 4 Union players on top of the Montreal box occupying defenders. This is really important because it opens up space for the left back Kai Wagner. When Medunjanin gets his head up, the Union players know to make runs because they know he can get that pass onto their foot. When Medunjanin gets his head up, the Union players are quick to make their runs. It's important here that Jamiro Montero is guarding the right back, Bacary Sagna. And I say guarding despite the fact that the Union are offense, because it takes him out of the play. Medunjanin clips a perfect pass over Sagna into the path of Kai Wagner. He now has Corey Burke wide open right in front of the box, and actually does very well to get his touch to him before Evan Bush can make a play. Now comes perhaps the miss of the season, as Corey Burke tries to stick out the outside of his right foot to tap it in, though would have been better just using his left. In the end, he's lucky that Alejandro Bedoya was right there to pick up the scraps, though he does put it a little close to Sagna, who almost makes the block. In the end, this was the perfect example of the Union executing Jim Curtin's plan of overloading the Montreal defense. Well, that's it for a second look this week. If you enjoyed this episode, you can check out the previous 2 where I looked at the Dallas and the Galaxy games. Hope to see you next week on A Second Look. Have a great week.